Okay, hey everybody, this is Scourge back from a long hiatus from video making. Um, Hopefully won't have any technical challenges here. I was having some issues back when I was making my last set of videos. For a very brief catch up on what's been going on with me, I was playing basically just live and I was doing pretty well. Um, uh, Bankroll was sitting pretty high. I was very well rolled for 1-2, and I was shot taking 2-5 live and doing okay there. Um, Things started to get a lot worse though, and I ended up going on a pretty big downswing. And then actually ended up taking two different poker trips to Foxwoods and then to Las Vegas to play tournaments, and bricked everything and continued on a cash downswing. So I ended up just a few days ago depositing back onto Bovada just a little bit, $175. Get back into the swing of playing online. If I bust that, I'll probably be redepositing because I'm not really using bankroll management per se. But let's get started. I've got two tables of 10NL, two tables of 5NL because 25NL isn't running somehow on a Saturday night. Hopefully I'll remember how to actually talk about what's going on as it happens, and hopefully, again, this will actually record well. So here with everybody fully stacked except for the limper, I actually don't like calling here. This is a pretty standard board to see bet down on the bottom left. It's very dry. He's pretty short, but that's okay, I think. Spots right away. So we get called down here. This isn't like a great barrel card, and we still have over, so we can catch. So I kind of want to just check behind and try to catch up. Maybe my hand's good sometimes. This is a really good card for me to bet, though, so I'm probably going to bet it. Here I'm getting 9-1. He c-bets into three people. I'm actually gonna fold, and when he calls as well, I don't think my hand is going to be good that often. I'm going to sit out and see what happens here. Here I'm going to not quite pot it, but go pretty big. He was mashing the full button. They both check, so I think that kind of clarifies that my flop fold is probably correct most of the time. This looks like kings or like king queen a lot of the time, but he doesn't get a call. Second pair, not quite enough multi-way here. I kind of have to keep reminding myself this is 10NL and 5NL, and so I can't really get too out of line. Shouldn't be taking too many bluff lines where the success of the bluff is dependent on them understanding what I'm representing. Because often, even if they do understand it, they'll just call anyway because it's $5 or whatever, you know, they don't care. For whatever reason, they don't understand or they don't care. I'm c-betting here, but it's not really for value. There are some draws out there that will call. Here we catch trips, so I'm value betting. I'm going to go big so I can jam the river. There are definitely some draws and some like pair plus draw combos, so the 10 is actually a pretty bad turn card in terms of, like, if he floated with Jack 10, this is like the most horrific run out ever, so I'm just going to check fold. His range is just completely smashing my hand right now, but we managed to chop it, which is best case scenario. Pretty much. I'm trying to think, like, what combos does he have that I'm ahead of there? Like Queen 9, I guess. King 9. Those might be the only combos I'm actually ahead of. Let's see. Let's talk opening ranges, I guess. I go back and forth, right? Because the people who play these lower limits are really, really bad. I mean, there might be a few people who could beat higher that are still down here. Like, it's possible. I'm down here, right? And, I've beaten higher limits than this on Bovada, but I also feel I feel that, like, we probably have a skill edge though, enough to the point where we can probably play wider ranges pre-flop. But at the same time, it's really easy to fall into this trap where we're opening wide ranges pre-flop and we're trying to make big bluffs post-flop. So I think it's important to remember that while we do have a big skill edge, our skill edge is utilized not in a way that we're just taking every pot, but rather in a kind of more subtle way. So, for example, one way that we really exploit these players is by bet folding a lot for value. This works because these players are playing their own cards, but they're also very call happy. So I have showdown value here. I don't really want to bet. I don't see any purpose in betting here. This is pretty nitty, but I think it's a fold just because we're not really going to make that much money with fours there, and his range is wide, etc. But anyway, interesting. We're chopping with every ace now. Almost makes me want to bet and try to get him to fold an ace, but I'm not sure if he really folds on that run out when I check twice in position. So we exploit people's tendencies, but that doesn't. So we're utilizing skill edge in that we understand how they're playing, and so we adjust to exploit them more efficiently. This is pretty nice. We get a limp and an ISO here. Sizing is a little bit weird with the short stacks behind, but I think I'm just going to pot it anyway because I don't think anyone's that size cognizant. So with such a big card edge like I'll have with aces, I want to shovel money in whenever possible, pretty much. But so I think at the same time, I don't want to be, we're going to be getting over 2-1 here, so I think this is a call. Wow, we get it in crushing him. Here, I think we can see that. Gonna go small though. Top set, I mean, jeez, this is. I'm actually gonna check this. He's not gonna have that many flush draws in his range, so we're not really worried about turn cards. And that's a good card because I don't think he would expect us to check ace king really. By the way, here I'm giving up once he calls the flop because I just don't think he's going to fold anything. Yeah, I can't really check twice. I think he hits a king sometimes, and he'll definitely call one street at minimum. That's actually a really good card because king-queen should be in his range. In fact, I think that's a good enough thing for me to just jam. Good enough card for me to just jam. He will actually get there sometimes with diamonds because we gave him a free card on the flop, but you can't really be looking for those monsters under the bed. We obviously have the best of it a huge percentage of the time. It's a pretty interesting spot. I almost want to jam and try to get him to call with ace high. In fact, I think I'm going to do that for some fun. And before he has ace king. Just try to check it down here. He bets 10 cents, which kind of blows. I'm going to call and see what he has, but I don't expect to be ahead very much at all. And we're obviously calling here. Wasn't expecting to be in that good a shape, but suddenly we're, wow. I was going to say suddenly we're flipping on the flop, but he just casually hits a double gutter there on the turn. Kind of sucks, but whatever. It was 80 cents, and we got it in massively favored pre-flop. It's pretty weird going from playing live, where at maximum you're getting 35 hands an hour, to, I don't know, he's probably leading with a lot of pairs, flush draws, 8x, but I don't think I'm ever going to be able to blow him off of it on one street, and maybe not even 2 or 3. So I'm just going to give it up and thank him for telling us what he had. So anyway, as I was saying, it's pretty weird going from playing, roughly 35 hands an hour. This is a little bit of a loose open, but sometimes I'll do that. From the cutoff, from the button, I think this is standard. but we're going to get lots of calls everywhere. I'm not c-betting this board because it's wet and hits a limp call range, and now I'm just folding when he bets. There's like not really too much we can do to combat that sort of run out with like a low pair. We just have so little equity. This is like semi-value. I mean, there are draws out there. 9x, 8x might call 1 or 2. This board's not the greatest to see bet. I could maybe do it, but this is a pretty okay card. We don't love it, we don't hate it. Picking up a flush draw is nice, but I expect to be ahead a lot anyway. It also makes 8x obviously get there. When he check min raises, I think he has a lot of 8x in his range, but at the same time we're getting almost 5 to 1 and we have a flush draw, so I'm going to call and try to hit, but I'm folding if he bets forever. It's pretty interesting if he checks. I'm probably just checking behind, but I don't expect to necessarily be good that often. I'm going to bet here. I didn't bet the flop, and it checked around, which means people's ranges are pretty capped. Just looking to take it down, of course, but we obviously have equity when called. I will make a c-bet here. This is a spot I always go back and forth on, and I don't really have a great answer for whether it's better to bet or better to check. It kind of depends on how high your hand value is. So pocket 10s I'm much more inclined to bet, whereas pocket, I forget what was on the board, but like pocket 6s I might be more inclined to check give up because my hand is going to be good when called if I bet 10s a decent portion of the time against worse pocket pairs. Not so with something like 5s or 6s. There's obviously value in taking down the pot when you have a lower pocket pair because you can't really win at showdown as often. People will hit higher pairs more often. But at the same time, I think that you have so little equity when called often that it's usually just going to be better to give up and say, okay, I don't need to see bet 100%. Here we're just checking to get to showdown. Yeah, we'll let him catch up sometimes, but it's hard to see any reason to bet here. I'm gonna 3-bet this, probably get it in if he wants to, if he's amenable. Did I open this under the gun? I guess I opened this under the gun. That's probably a little too loose. This is a little bit gross, actually. His sizing's a little scary, but it's probably usually ace-king. Wow, same hand, cool. And no one can run a runner, anybody else, so, wow. That's sick, our pairs don't even play. You don't see that too often. Well, who won that hand? Nevada won that hand. I could have raised this pre-flop in the big blind. Again, this is one of those spots where I don't have like a great reason for not doing so. It's more that I don't think it's really for value if we do raise, and you know, I just think that it's not really going to play that well when we're called, and unless we make it pretty massive, I don't think we get that many folds, especially from the limper. And then also if the limper calls, then small blind's going to call with a higher frequency. So I mean, you know, it's probably just an okay spot to check and hope we spike something and get paid. Oh, looks like I'm getting a little low on chips here, so I'm going to top up. Obviously, one of the things that kind of tilts me the most about Bovada is no auto top up and how much the software kind of sucks. He ISOs. He's a full stack. I'm going to 3-bet him as a semi-bluff. This is not like my favorite spot to overcall, but I will do it just because I think I will have a card edge most of the time. Here I'm going to overlimp. Whoops. I tried to 3-bet, and the buttons just aren't being that cooperative today, it seems. I get cold called. Excuse me, not cold called. He limp called the 3-bet, which I'm not excited about. This is a little bit of a crazy move, but when he bets 10 cents and everyone calls, basically everybody's capped to very weak pairs with flush draws, so just try to raise small and get folds. You get one call and pretty much the worst card in the deck comes. catch a pair here. I think he has a lot of pocket pairs. He might float with like ace jack, ace king. I'm just gonna check and try to get to showdown now. I was gonna say I'm probably not calling if he bets, just because I don't see any reason for him to jam like pocket tens here. Yeah, I mean, he could have a flush draw though. Let's call. Oh, no, I'm going to time out because I lag when I'm making videos. And here we do catch a pretty sweet card, and I think we're ahead when he checks two streets, turn and river. He doesn't pay us off, but it's okay. Yeah, I'm not really sure in that last hand whether we were really ahead, because he can definitely have flush draws. There's just some uncertainty about whether he would take that line with them or not. A little loose on the gun, queen jack off. Queen jack suited, I'm usually raising. King jack offsuit, I would raise. Queen jack off is like kind of on the cusp for me. This guy's deep. I'm just gonna free bet him. Our hand plays okay as a flat, but I prefer it from the button if we're gonna flat and try to like make moves and stuff. ISOing here, pretty standard. He's short stacked, so he's probably bad. He's playing 10 and now, he's probably bad. Pretty sweet flop. I'm ISOing here. It's not really for value. It's not really as a bluff. It's kind of in between slash I'll get folds on a lot of flops. Not a very great flop for us, but I think it's still okay to see that. He'll have a lot of pocket pairs when he takes this on the call line. We pick up a gutter and a very weak flush draw. I think for the reasons stated on the flop, we can bet again because he's still going to have a lot of those like pairs less than tens. When he calls again, I'm really not excited about continuing. I think he usually has queen x, maybe 10x, but it's just so hard to know without reads, so I think we just check give up. Just going to call here. It's a little weird when he's so short stacked. Yeah, see, he tanks with queen jack there, which I don't think he can really ever bet for value, but he thinks about it. He checks the flop. Kind of just protecting my equity here by betting. He checked jams, which, I mean, I don't know what he's repping, really. He shouldn't have any air like this because he should just bet the flop, but his jam is so huge, I don't see how he thinks I'm going to call. But in these spots, I think it's better to default to folding. When there's that much uncertainty, it's kind of better to lose that small pot than to call and probably lose a bigger one. Or at least you lose a bigger one the times that you do lose. Kind of have to be right more often to justify calling than folding. So I'm very glad that Ivana finally started to let people multi-table zone. It does kind of suck that you can only do 2 tables for each limit, but it's still a hell of a lot better than only 1 per limit, because back then it was like, I was pretty rolled for 25, not really that rolled for 50, and it was like, well, do I really want to play like 25, 10, and 5 just so I can like, get volume? Probably not. And then also, it was like kind of hard to even get 10 and L running back in the day. And so it was like, well, am I really going to play 25 and L and 5 and L just to get volume? Like, it's not really an ideal situation, and so you'd end up kind of like 1 tabling whatever limit you were playing at zone, and then 3 tabling regular tables, and that's just never been my favorite. When he calls the flop, there's not really any draws other than what's in our hand, so we block them. Really just give him a ton of kings here. Pretty sweet flop for us. Looking to get the money in here 100% of the time if I can. We don't really get that good of a price here. This guy's super deep, but this guy's short, and he's the one we have to get implied odds against. so I'm just going to film it. Looks like 25NL is starting to get a couple more players, so hopefully within the next 10 or 15 minutes it will pick up and really get going. Again, this is one of those boards where I'm not really betting for value when I c-bet, but I'm going to c-bet because we hate a lot of turn cards, and we still will get called by worse sometimes. I'm going to raise here because the donk bet is kind of synonymous with a check or like a he doesn't want us to bet kind of line. Very occasionally you'll see people do that to induce, but I mean, it's 5NL. You try not to overthink things is kind of the motto, I think. Don't overthink things, I think. But yeah, it's just sort of like, just don't overcomplicate things, you know? I've definitely been someone who has done that in the past, and I think that especially when I'm playing these lower limits, it's helpful to remind myself to just take a 2-second break and like realize that your gut is probably right the first time. Really hoping this 25NL game will get going and I can ditch these 5NL tables to hop on those. I think the action just is a little bit more interesting. There's more to talk about. You can start actually taking bluff lines that people will sort of start to respect a little bit. Even if they're not like putting you on an exact range that makes sense, they'll still kind of start to recognize what kind of a line is representing strength and how much strength and etc. This is a pretty bad board and he's short stack, so I just kind of default to not c-betting it. We catch a pair, so I'm going to bet. There's a million draws. Blah blah blah. Even though we see the same kind of board type where I have a pocket pair, I not only have that kind of awkward low pair, I also have 3 other players I would have to get through, so I'm just giving up here. Although, I don't know why he's betting so small. But again, trying not to overthink, so I'll just check give up. I'm gonna ISO here rather than overlimp. I think this is something that I've started doing more and more, and is kind of probably still underappreciated. People see like the suit connector, like, oh, this plays well multi-way, like this plays well with big SPR, like I'm gonna blah blah blah, I'm gonna flat. But I think they underestimate the value of being able to see bet as opposed to just bet into a board, especially when people will default give you the betting lead post flop. It's not that initiative has something, some inherent value itself, but I think that the way people respond to the initiative has value. Pretty good turn card to barrel, so I went for it. Pretty terrible river card, so I'm going to check it back. Pretty optimistic turn call, I think. It might be profitable against the average player in this game, but I kind of don't think so. He open limps. I don't really see a point in betting here. Ditto on the turn river. There's just, we don't get value. He 2x pots the river and you can just fold. He's not taking this like crazy airline where he checks twice and then bets 25 cents on the river to win 12. Like, no one's doing that. I'm betting flop so I can bet turn and get it in. I mean, we'll be beat sometimes, but that's actually a pretty bad card for us, but I still don't see how we can do anything like that. Probably shouldn't have gone this big here. It's a little bit wet, but I don't think it's necessary. He min raises, which I think is usually going to be indicative of like a top pair. type hand, maybe like a weak queen with a flush draw, so I don't really see a point in trying to get him to lay anything down. I don't know why top up isn't working. Oh, maybe I did it this hand. Same deal here. The tiny donk bet is just like not usually going to be anything. Or he could be inducing, so I think here I'm just going to give up when he does it twice. And we don't credibly really rep anything except for queens. I think more often than not he has at least a pair and he probably doesn't want to fold. 10x pre, solid. Kind of ISO pretty big here. I'd kind of rather just take it down than see a flop. And here again, this is not really value or a bluff per se. It's just trying to take down the pot. A little bit of protecting my equity. We get the limp re-raise, which is just grounds to snap fold. I almost want to ISO there. I think it's a little bit too loose. I've definitely done it before though, and I will probably do it again. You can see I'm kind of floating around here with the mouse. I'm really just trying to get as many spots in as possible because even for tabling, it's only about 400 hands an hour, and so when I know a hand's not going to be interesting, just kind of try to fly through it if possible. But some people tank in the big blind getting 7 to 1, 3.5 to 1, sorry. And it keeps telling me, did I really just keep losing big pots? It keeps telling me that my chips will be added, but it's lying to me. This is 10 and 0, right? Yeah, this is 10 and 0. It should not be happening. There we go. Even though it only bets 1/3, just not a hand type I want to take a stand with. Pocket eights aren't going to play that well on turns and rivers when we do get action, so it's just fun to fold. Pretty much the bottom of my opening range here. We get 3-bet, pretty big. Not excited about it. It's going to be hard for us to make enough for this to be profitable, so I think folding's fine. You know, if we're set mining there, it's just going to be too hard to make money. It's fine to fold once in a while. Again, gonna ISO here. Especially against full stacks, this is going to be really effective because we represent a much stronger range with like high cards, ace-x, but we also hit kind of those middling and low suited boards, which means that we can credibly c-bet bluff high boards when we don't have pot equity, and we have pot equity when we can't really get much fold equity, which is a pretty brilliant combination in my book. If he checks, I'm just betting 10 cents and trying to take it down. Hit min 3-bet. 4.5 to 1, he's got a reasonably sized stack. Let's just call and see what happens. Catch one of the worst boards possible. He calls us, which I'm not excited about. I think he has a pair almost always. Maybe a draw, but more likely a pair. He checks though. He could be trying to check raise, but I think it's worth trying to stab at. He might just have something like jacks with no diamond, and as he does here, he might check fold. Again, not really excited about this situation. How do we make money with small pairs out of position against a wide range? Give you a hint, the answer is we usually don't. Yeah, I mean, something can be said for 3-betting, but I think that is only really more applicable at higher limits when people kind of are thinking about what's in your range. And so having a lot of pairs that you can 3-bet and potentially 5-bet jam as kind of a bluff that has equity, um, that has much more value at limits where people are going to try to be 4-betting back at you light and stuff like that. At 10 and now, it's just, again, if you can't make money there set playing, and so you're going to have to take a lot of bluff lines that I'm not convinced are going to be that profitable. Getting 3-bet a hell of a lot, but has this huge stack, so I just kind of feel like we're going to stack it if we catch. Because he's probably just playing pretty nitty and crushing souls. I'm going to flat here against a full stacker. He doesn't seem excited at all, and his sizing also doesn't make him look that excited, but he could just be tanking for Hollywood effect. I don't really want to check raise. This hand has almost no equity when he continues, so just get rid of it. I don't love flatting this hand, so I'm going to 3-bet it. It's pretty much ace-jack, I'm flatting. Ace-10 suited, I'm flatting. I'd rather just, do that. I'm going to see bet small here. Again, we just rep aces. We're not really looking to, shovel money in when he check raises. Definitely not excited about our hand then. So we're not really running too well right now. We haven't really made any value hands. We've won a lot of very small pots by taking things down pre-flop or on the flop. We haven't really made any pairs, which is why we're kind of just bleeding off. You notice at 5 and 10 and now, if you don't make any pairs, it's very unlikely that you're going to have a profitable session. Here I'm going to ISO. We're also getting 3-bet like crazy, which it's kind of easy. Oh, we flop trips. We finally flop a decent hand on a board we're very unlikely to get any action. But I don't see us checking being the right play. If he does have a worse 10, he's never ever folding, and so we kind of have to just try to shovel money in against the range that will. Wow, ask and ye shall receive, I guess. Here I'm actually going to 3-bet this. Here again, I'm just trying to shovel money in. I'm going to overbet a little so that I can jam the river, and here I'm obviously betting for value. This is actually a pretty shitty run out because most 10x that he can have is pretty reasonably there as a boat now. Here I'm just jamming because he doesn't have enough more for me to not do that. So we're just gonna jam every board at once, and we're good. So he's probably got a pocket pair, or potentially a worse 10, but probably more likely a pocket pair actually, given his line. We get there, which is nice. if we were behind then. Did we win that set hand? I guess we must have won, but his sizing is a little bit concerning, but I can't fold with just one, even when he pots it. If he barrels here, I'm definitely not excited about it. I'm probably check folding if he palms it. It does pretty small, which actually I think is more indicative of a jack or maybe even ace-king. You could have something like queen-jack and be like, oh shit, I gotta reel him in. Gotta get paid. Can't let him fold. Not excited about calling it off here. I'm just gonna fold. Same hand, makes sense with his line. Pretty much exactly what I said in terms of the queen comes and he still thinks this hand is good, but he's not excited about it. He's worried about blowing us off with weaker hands. I actually wanted to say his line looks like ace jack, but you feel stupid when you say it's a chop and you call. Not only that, but not only that, but God, what? Sorry, in blind versus blind confrontations, I've just been getting so much action today, so it's kind of frustrating to actually spike a very strong hand and not get anything out of him, especially on a wet board. Pretty much the bottom of my opening range here. Here, it's not, again, it's kind of a value bet since we're blind versus blind. I mean, you can definitely call it worse here a lot. I'm not sure if we beat 50% of his continuing range or not, but we definitely get fold equity, so we're gonna get raised instead, which is kind of interesting because like, what does he really raise here? I'm actually gonna peel one because, I mean, oh wow, we spike like the nuts basically. Terrible board to c-bet, so I won't. Good board to c-bet, so I will. I'm just gonna check and let him barrel off, I think, because actually he's gonna check all his kings. I don't know if he raises a king. That's the only problem with what I'm trying to do here. He shouldn't really put us on an ace ever. So if he has like king queen, you know, a bet would make sense. But I don't think a lot of players are betting ace queen here. I actually kind of want to lead, just because I'm worried he's gonna give up with a king now, but he might call a river if I just make this like weird bet. I don't think we really rep anything. We rep some backdoor flushes. When he jams, I actually don't even think we're ahead. But I don't think I can find a fold because we beat like 7-5, king 9, king 7. A lot of hands that he'd probably play in the big blind. Or he has ace 3. I don't really understand that. Like, I don't know if he thinks it's for value, but that's just like a really weird jam. I mean, realistically, like, what is he getting called by? Like, I'm not donking with a king there. I'm check calling at most. I'm definitely not donking, like, I mean, if I'm donking, so here's the thing, I think my donking range there is probably polarized, which is what makes his jam really bad with the semi, like, a hand that has showdown value. So when you have a hand with showdown value and you think that someone's range is polarized, raising is usually going to be your worst option. The reason is that a showdown value hand is always going to fall between the value part of their range and their air. And their air is usually not going to continue. Especially if you jam, you know their air is not going to continue. So we have showdown value, which means we can beat some of his range. That's betting. You know, assuming a call is profitable, a raise should probably not be your best bet there, because if his value range isn't going to fold, then all you're doing by raising is calling off the money versus the hands you beat and the hands you lose against, and then shoveling more money in against the hands you lose against. So I think that was basically textbook way ahead, way behind, where he just like doesn't beat anything once he raises and I call. This was a misstep where I just zoned out completely. This is such an easy 3-bet pre-flop for value. We get led into, we check, which is probably bad. Again, I should have bet there. I don't want to check raise. I think check raising is kind of overplaying my hand, although it does get me out of awkward situations like this one. But that club's only coming about 18% of the time, so I'm not really going to sweat it too much. If he barrels, his sizing tells me we're still usually ahead to like ace-jack and ace-10 and ace-9, which is now ahead of us. But I think we can check and evaluate based on his sizing. If he bombs it, we might be able to fold. But if he bets small again, I'm calling because I think he takes this line with ace-jack a ton. I don't love the sizing. This looks more like ace-queen than ace-jack, but getting a pretty good price. We'll chop sometimes. We'll beat ace-jack and ace-king sometimes. He will have some flushes, but I think we can call here. Yeah, see, and that's another reason to kind of default to calling. I mean, it sounds so bad, like when I say it aloud like this, but the thing is, people just spaz so much. I mean, like, he does not get me to fold very much there. Like, if he's going to jam there, sure, I love a jam there. A jam there would be super awesome against my range, because I basically have no flushes in my range. Realistically, I don't have that many flushes in my range. Certainly discount all the combos that I would play that way, because I wouldn't play it that way very often. And, I mean, on top of that, like, I'm representing decent aces. So jam is actually decent at 10 and 0. I think you can maybe start to get people to fold at 10 and 0. At 5 and 0, I would not do that. I would just give up. In fact, I wouldn't bet the turn. But that's the thing, is like, I wouldn't bet the turn in the first place in his spot, because I definitely, on the flop, I do represent flush draws. I think with the flop turn combination, I don't have very many flushes. But on the flop, when I call, you can definitely put a ton of flush draws in my range. So just kind of one of those spots where I think he was betting just to try to win the pot, but he wasn't thinking. He wasn't thinking about like what he represents or, whoops, I tried to make my ISO size and I got distracted, I guess, so I just bombed it here, but that's okay. Intimidation factor, I think we can easily flat this here. It's like no-brainer in position, blind versus blind. This is so nasty. I mean, I want to call this so bad. If it folds to me, I'm probably going to call, to be honest. He calls, but his call is basically not a call. Jeez, I'm going to call. We get there, and he gets there. We can't get there. Oh, brother. So, I mean, like, I don't really get why people do that, but I think that's kind of what makes it okay to call with ace-queen. I've also seen people do that with ace-10, ace-9, random shit like that, and I think more often than not, it's someone tilting who's just like, going crazy. I think we can call here in position deep with these people. Catch a gutter ball, which isn't too bad. 2 overs. I think we're behind here when he takes this line. Sizes that way. This is... I mean, I don't know what this guy can really have, so he's pretty capped to like pairs, I think. So I'm just gonna raise, try to get folds. That's probably a little too big, actually. If he jams, he has a set or a straight, so we can just fold. But we credibly rep like almost every 2-pair combo, straights, sets. There's no flush draw out there, which is actually good for us, I think, because people aren't like, oh, he's just raising a flush draw. And so that's a spot where, like, in the past, I never would have tried to pick up on that at all. This is semi-value. More just trying to take the pot, but he's going to call with ace-king, so I think we can just check and we'll win showdown a ton. Or we'll chop. That's kind of weird. 25 and L still not getting off the ground, so I guess we'll just stick around here until, well, for the remainder of the video, probably. But yeah, so in that spot where the flop was 9-8-5, or 9-8-5 rainbow, I think it's actually better to not have flush draws on board because people first of all won't have flush draws, so it's harder for them to continue. There's fewer draws that they want to continue with, and also, we don't represent any draws really. We did actually have a gut shot, which it helps to have some equity, but we're deep with this guy, and he makes a small 3-bet, so I'm not like super excited, but we'll get a good price because of his sizing. Getting it in here. He is under the gun, but we're only 100 big blinds deep, so that's fine. Excuse me. We get called by this guy, which I'm not excited about. I think I'm just checking and probably giving up because, yeah, if he jams, I can fold. He's just not going to be jamming like ace-jack there, and if he is, he's not doing it often enough. A little bit of a loose call here. It's probably a bad call, actually. In position, I could maybe overcall, but I think out of position is almost always bad. Easy 3-bet here for value. Value, value, value. Okay. Okay, I was worried that table was breaking. Not breaking as in people leaving because it's zoned, but breaking as in software not working. There's been this funky issue at 25 and L lately where only 5 seats will fill up. It's pretty bizarre. But yeah, 5 seats will fill up and the game never starts. So you have to just get up and re-enter zone, which sucks because you always get put in the big blind. This is a pretty awesome flop. just in terms of like people are going to have so many Broadway hands that they should not be continuing with. I actually think I could 4-bet here. This is something I've been doing at 25 and also when someone with a big stack 3-bets me out of the blinds and I'm on the button, I just 4-bet because the people who are 3-betting a lot, they're the ones that you're going to run into more when you're facing a 3-bet. It's just kind of like simple looking at the distribution and seeing that even though most people are only 3-betting very strong value hands, because their value range is so small, you don't run into those hands that often. Whereas people who are 3-betting wide ranges, they're 3-betting a lot of hands, so even if there's not that many of them, you still see them a lot. I think ace-10's a good hand to do it with too, because we block ace-king and aces. But we also can't call the 3-bet profitably. At 5 and nil, I'm not as excited about doing it, just because I think the quote-unquote good players are going to be more value-oriented anyway. Apparently I just got mail from the IRS, according to my mother. Okay, he leads for pot on the turn, but I think we can call. I mean, we went check on the flop, I think, which was probably a mistake. When he bets again, I think we're just toast, especially with that sizing. He's a little too short for me to win. He said a hand this week, so I'll just give it up. Min raises the button. I kind of want to. I'm on the edge about 3-betting or calling. I think folding is pretty atrocious because we're going to have a huge card edge. We dominate a lot of hands that open. We do very well on a lot of different board types, and we can make moves as well. This is purely for value. People can easily pick up a king here, and they're not folding 2 streets. You get raised, though, which kind of blows. I mean, you could have something like king 4, king deuce, 4 deuce sets. I just don't see why he would wait until the turn to raise an air hand, except for maybe a flush draw. But, you know, again, if he had an air hand, I think he's likely raising earlier. He's too short for what I just did there. That was bad. We catch a miracle flop, though, and he bets small, so we're going to raise probably with a fair bit of full equity. And I'm going to fold here. And we call it off because even though we don't get that great of a price, we just have the most amazing draw ever. Let's see, how many outs do we have there? We have 9 flush outs plus 6 more open-ended outs. Plus we have redraws if he hits like a, could he hit like a boat, I guess? Yeah, if he like spikes a boat, I guess we have 2 outs. So, you know, that's good. No, but I think when he jams, like it's usually ace king or aces, just like that's kind of how people play it, but I don't know, I don't fold that there ever. I don't know anyone who does either. That's not saying it's correct, but like we have so much equity. Like he would have to, he'd have to like jam $1 million in there with no money in the pot before I would like consider folding. Even though my equity is probably not quite good enough to call, getting 1-to-1. Don't really see any reason to bet here with the action how it went. Here I'm going to bet. I think his range is usually pretty weak. A lot of ace high, a lot of... we're just going to raise. I mean, I don't really think he reps all that much except for, I guess, sets, but it just sucks on a board like this because, like, how many sets do you have? Like, there's nothing else on the board. But at the same time, we have 10 high, we have no draw, we have no equity, basically, if he has something. And if he doesn't have anything, we still don't really have equity. So what am I going to do, like 3-bet folds? I guess I could, but it seems bad. We're not really getting the greatest boards ever. I mean, you know, this is manageable in terms of c-betting, but wow. This is like 10, 20 big blinds. I'm just going to fold. Feels really nitty, but yeah, I think that's right with this action. He has 4s though. Oh, we'd be in amazing shape. Oh, we don't get there though, so clearly results are in thinking we made the right play. It's a little bit nitty, but it's also kind of standard, just like people aren't opening light enough. Just sitting out everywhere and not making any money anywhere either. It was always fun. When big stack opens, I usually like, when he opens the button, I usually like to 3-bet. We get 4-bet though, so we just fold. This guy's been watching my videos. Wait, I haven't published this one yet. Okay, bad jokes aside, I think it's fine to kind of 3-bet fold there with impunity. It's just like not enough people are 4-betting in that spot, and well, not enough people are 4-betting in that spot with air. So we can just 3-bet fold. Gonna let this video go on a little bit longer, but then call it quits pretty soon. It's been going a little over 45 minutes, I think. Hopefully there were some spots in there that were interesting. You know, there weren't that many, obviously. I mean, we haven't really gotten all that many value hands. We haven't, you know, it's 10-0 and 5-0, so we haven't gotten quite that many interesting spots in terms of, well, it's kind of interesting, but we're obviously not calling. Gotten a few kind of interesting spots, like bet folding spots. But you know, aside from that, not too much going on. This is a little bit of an interesting spot pre-flop. I don't know that flatting is really going to be profitable, so I'm actually just going to 3-bet here because 3-betting is almost always going to be profitable in this kind of spot where someone with an almost full stack raises. Gets top pair, which is always nice. Makes our life a little bit easier, but we can't really lead strong or anything. Because again, our kicker is pretty bad here. Little loose under the gun. Checks through, so I think we're ahead a decent portion of the time. I don't really see what's calling us that's worse, so mainly trying to get to showdown here. If he bets again, I think we can actually call, just like, wow, he pots it. But like, what 4x do you really have? I mean, pocket 4s only? I mean, that might actually be his hand. 5-4. Okay, good open pre-flop, I guess. Here I'm giving up. Worst card ever, pretty much. Okay, when this 9-9 hand and this ace-queen hand finish up, I'll close this video down. Pretty bad board. not bad board, but it's like an okay board to c-bet, not one where I'm like excited about my hand though. If he continues, we're usually behind. That's a pretty interesting card though. I think he has Jack X more often than he has Queen X, but I'd rather just get to showdown now. We beat a lot of pocket pairs, Ace King, Ace 10, Ace, most aces, but not Ace Jack. Alright, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you guys kind of like this format, if you prefer seeing anything else. Always looking to improve how I make my videos, even if I'm not a professional. I still want you guys to enjoy whatever whatever you're watching, and I hope you get something out of it. So again, thanks for watching, and this has been Scourrge.